You can't outrun a bad diet, so don't try. Because the facts are, getting your diet right can improve your training, your racing, and your life. But you've got to be smart about it. So here are the 5 smartest ways to eat as a runner. And if we help you even just a little bit, then get subscribed for us to help you some more. So the smartest thing a runner can do is understand food, as in what types of food do what to you and when. Let me just demonstrate. These are all forms of carbohydrates. You've got your carb drink, you've got sugar, apple, you've got potato, broccoli, you've got bread. But that's not enough. Everybody knows these are carbohydrates. Let's separate them a little bit. That's better. So very basically, carbohydrates are separated into 2 distinct groups. Over here, you've got your complex carbs. Over here, you've got your simple carbs. These are more like sugars. They are more likely to get into your bloodstream fast and affect you quickly. These are slower releasing. They provide you energy over a longer period of time. And if you understand that, you're halfway there. So now knowing when to eat what's the next important thing. Carbohydrates, you want energy sometimes immediately. When do you take gels? In a race. When do you take a drinks mix? Before training or in a race? When might you have apple juice? This is not apple juice, this is orange juice. When might you have orange juice? On the morning of a race, top up those glucose stores. And on the flip side of it, whilst you're carb loading or generally just for a good diet, you might have pasta, you might have oats for breakfast, you might have potatoes. So that's carbohydrate in a nutshell, your energy store. Slow releasing, complex, quick releasing, simple. Training, in race, life. Sometimes treat also, you have to treat yourself sometimes. But then you gotta think, what are the other things that I eat in my diet? And protein is probably the next one that you hear of as a runner. And you probably think when you hear protein, big old slab of meat. This is actually our dog food. I wouldn't eat that, but you get what I'm saying. But actually protein can come in many forms, and meat is not always the healthiest version. You can have eggs, you can have actually beans and lentils, you can have, these are beans again. Nuts are a tremendous source of protein, not in this house, because what protein does is it promotes muscle repair, which is why you'll always hear of people going to the gym taking protein shakes. We've got these ones here from X-Real. We take protein shakes after workouts, like rather than actual running, more like in the gym. But again, promoting muscle repair. So don't hear the word protein and think meat. There are a tremendous amount of options all the way down to actual shakes. And a good rule of thumb is 1 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day of protein. So remember, muscle repair, recovery, growth. And finally, we have fats. And these are, I think, probably the most misunderstood, because actually, if you get fats right, they're your primary energy source for your easy runs. But people don't get them right. And it comes down to the battle between saturated and unsaturated. Saturated, things like butter, things like cheese, things like processed red meat, definitely want to avoid those. Unsaturated though, different story. They're the healthy fats, so think olive oil. So think avocados, so think nuts. Absolutely need healthy fats in your diet. And if you're like me, I don't like fish and I can't eat nuts because I have an allergy. Fish oil tablet right there. Supplements, good way to go as well. So don't panic when you hear the word fat. Understand the difference between the good fats and the bad fats, and then double down on the good fats. Right, we understand food now, hopefully a little bit better. It's time to get to the track. Yeah, and once you understand what foods do, I guess that's the point where you start to really dial it in. You start to really be intentional about when you take those foods, when you use those foods, what point in the day. And something we learned actually pretty recently was intentionality in our important sessions. So we realize it's not actually just good enough to eat good foods throughout the day. You can actually go one level up and be really intentional about particular sessions. Like in this case, we're here for a Track Tuesday session, which is going to be a pretty punchy interval session. And as such, I want to get the highest quality out of it. So I guess the first question should actually be, could I get away with doing this session without any fuel? Yeah, probably. But would the session be as high a quality? I don't know. It might be. I don't know. But here's the point. The fact is, in this type of session, I'm gonna burn through my carbohydrate stores. That's just a fact. And while the session might not last like 90 minutes, it's definitely gonna take a hit. So, why wouldn't I put some carbs or some energy back in before I start the session in the form of maybe a banana, or in this case, actually we use a carb mixed drink. You can use, like, there's Morton, we use Bix, there's Tailwind. So intentionally pre-fueling before any type of session like this. Not every session, I'm not like I'm gonna do it on easy run days, but things like a track session or certainly like my long run day, I'm gonna get some carbohydrates in there just to keep the session quality high. That is, can you see how high this level is? Because that's what studies are saying at the moment. Studies are saying right now that you should be intentional about your hard sessions, you should be intentional about your long runs, and intentionality starts with putting some fuel in before the session even starts. But that's not where it ends. All right, fuel is on board. This is gonna be a hard session. It's my favorite session. It is after a warm-up, 1-800, 2 600s, 3 400s, 4 300s, 5 200s, all at pretty punchy speed with a bit of walking rest. I'll put it in the description to the video rather than bore you, but yeah, we're also going to need to do something about keeping the fuel levels up in session. Ready, go. All right, 800 incoming. Oh my goodness. But here's the kicker. In the depths of this session, the fueling that I took before, yeah, it might see me through, no problem. But I'm also gonna take a gel. And that's because I wanna guarantee this session quality stays high, not hope. And also, in sessions like this, it's very worthwhile training your body to accept gels that you like. So come race day, when you're under duress, you've trained your gut to deal with duress, because I think we all know what happens if we don't train our gut to take gels under duress, if you know what I'm saying. Oh, that is interval session done, for which I am eternally thankful. But something I'm also thankful for, and you should be thankful for, is the new thinking around fueling after a session. Because it used to be that they thought there was this kind of window of opportunity for after a session, for which when you put your fuel back in, it's the best for repair and recovery and replenishing those fuel reserves. They called it an anabolic window, but the thinking has changed. Now, they reckon that as long as you eat within 3 to 4 hours after a session, but the rest of your fueling in your day and before the session and in session is on point, there's really not that much urgency putting the fuel back in. Because actually, just a generally good diet will be absolutely sufficient. You don't have to like worry too much, oh, gotta get home, gotta put this back in. It's not like that anymore. I would say pre-fueling a session and fueling within a session is now more valuable than what you do afterwards. This is Mary doing her last rep as well. Go on, finish off in style. And the beautiful thing about doing a hard session like this, and then the fueling thing, is we get to go home in no rush and enjoy like a proper nice dinner. We've got a really, what are we eating tonight?
We've got like this sausage, broccoli and fennel thing with sweet potato.
All-time fave, yeah. So we're getting home to that. No rush, but it's gonna be delicious. How is it, man?
Delicious.
Boom. This is one I love. Jessie asleep, by the way. The smartest of runners, they take risks, and they take risks with their food as well. And actually, that's quite exciting to do. So you can break that down into, I reckon, 3 separate type of topics within the risk-taking category. And the first one is, take risks with the general food that you eat and the times that you eat it, because playing around with what you do and when you do it could reap massive benefits, right? You could not realize that eating a certain meal on the day before a race or a day before a training could massively improve your performance. Obviously, on the other hand, it could be a negative impact on your performance, but you don't know unless you do it. And then maybe the time that you eat your breakfast, or even eating breakfast at all, please please tell me that you do that. By playing around with what you eat when you eat it, you might unlock this next level that maybe you didn't even realize that you had. But then we come to gels in particular when it comes to racing, because if we're racing endurance, long distance, half marathon and marathon, we're going to need to be putting gels back in our body, or at least carbohydrates. And what's really encouraging is that the gut is super trainable. It's as trainable as your muscles. So if you have a gel, and perhaps this is exactly like it happened with us at Boston, it really didn't feel like those gels that we were using, because they were a Thai brand, were making much of an impact at all, and we had not a very good Boston Marathon. So we played around, we did a bit of research, we found some new gels, and then we trained with them over and over and over again before Chicago Marathon, and boom, felt like we hit the jackpot in Chicago Marathon, because those gels definitely worked for us. So even if you feel like the gels are kind of working for you, there's no harm in trying other ones, because they might work better. And finally, what do you do in the lead up to your races? Because carb loading has a long, storied, evidenced background of benefit for you as a runner, and you're probably missing out on potential improvements on race day by not even trying it. And we fall heavily into this category, because I always felt like I eat a decent amount of carbs, like always, love carbs. So before races I would just have my normal meals, I'd have some chips if I wanted, I'd have potato, whatever. When we actually looked into carb loading, it was a hell of a lot more carbs than we were eating. And so Chicago, once again, we doubled down. Like, we went for it. We were eating bagels, we were drinking carb mixed drinks, we were making sure we were eating carbs breakfast, lunch and dinner, we were having orange juice, anything we could think of to get into our bodies in the lead up. I was trying to eat for 2 days 10 to 12 grams of carbs per kilogram of my body weight per day. And if you actually do the maths on that, it's about 600 to 650 grams of carbs a day, and that's a lot. A bagel is about 50 grams. So think about how much I had to eat. But again, a little bit of experimentation, a little bit of risk taking, and boom, a massive PB in Chicago. So don't be afraid. Now get eating. And tip number 4 to train smarter as a runner starts here. Actually, it starts with a sit down and a thought out list. Then we go to the shop. Okay, so after the list, it's back here, and then it's all about knowing what you want and what you don't want ahead of time. Prep work so that you don't make the wrong decisions. And trust me, I've made a lot of wrong decisions in places like this. Too often have I come into a place like this hungry, and that is when I'm weak, and I think you know where this is leading. It leads to places like this, and this. So we found that by creating a list, and therefore like thinking way ahead of time, like having foods that we wanted to eat throughout the week, we probably have maybe 12 to 15 meals on rotation, but by sitting down on Sunday creating a list of the things that we would need in here to cook the foods that we want, it kept us really accountable, it kept us really focused when we came in here and we didn't make those silly choices. Keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. We even got to the point when it was really hard, in the deepest, darkest work moments, where we picked 2 recipes, and then we would cook enough to get like Monday and Wednesday, and then Tuesday and Thursday. So we became creatures of habit out of necessity. But we found that really worked nicely for us if you're alright with the kind of same meals a couple of times a week. So we, hopefully, as you can see, are all about crafting our environment, because I make poor choices when I'm weak at home. So when I'm feeling strong in there, I don't make those choices. I come with a full stomach and an idea, and then there's no chocolate, there's no crisps, there's no anything at home that when I'm tired from training or when I'm weak and I know I'll go to it, it's not there. And finally, if none of that floats your boat, then what we found that worked for us for a time when we were in the UK, we used a company like HelloFresh that just delivered a recipe and all the foods that you need to make that recipe to us, and they were like 20 minutes to cook the meals. And again, that worked really nicely because you can stay healthy. I've just realised I've locked myself out of the car, hold up. And at some point, maybe we'll get a HelloFresh code and we'll put it in the description of this video, but I don't know. So we haven't always been smart runners, probably you already know that, but we are trying to be better, and we've definitely learned that these are the things that work for us and keep us accountable and keep us on the right track when it comes to our diet, because I make poor choices, very well aware of it. This is how we avoid those choices. And we got one more for you. Oh, this is a painful easy run. I did a full high rocks simulation yesterday and my legs are in bits. But the final smart way for runners to train, and something that really impacted me, it actually came from a conversation Mary and I were having in our marathon training group about 2 weeks ago. We have a live call every Sunday, and one of our athletes in class 3, Wayne, who's been with us for a long time, was just saying about how it's been quite a revelation for him to view running as a long-term thing that doesn't necessarily pay off in the real immediate. And I commented, actually I feel the same way about broccoli, which we realised is the way that you do have to look at your diet when it comes to running. Is yes, you can get an immediate hit from sugar, from donuts, from burgers. You know, they are set up and designed to give you an immediate hit, but actually foods like broccoli and lettuce and cabbage and carrots and all of those foods that might not taste amazing certainly don't give you an immediate hit. They are a long-term payoff, but it has to be a bit of a faith in the process thing. And that is exactly the same with running. You might not see the payoffs in the early days, but if you keep knocking on the door with running, you're definitely going to see long-term payoffs. And if you keep knocking on the door with foods that you know are good for you, you're definitely going to see the long-term payoff. So running is broccoli, and that's the way we've got to see it if we want to stay healthy and getting the best out of ourselves. Okay, hopefully this video brought you enough value to convince you to subscribe. Even if you are watching this on a TV, get on your phone, click the subscribe button so that we can help you more. And also you definitely need to go and watch this video, because it was when I interviewed Matt Fitzgerald, one of the most popular authors on running and nutrition, about how the best athletes in the world eat for endurance. You will definitely find value there as well. So this is your next video. I'll see you next week.